is 5:30 on the 31st of March, and call the meeting of the Advisory Board for Culture and Leisure Services to order. Paula, will you call the roll?
Joel Farrell.
Here.
Mary Mosquero.
Here.
Catherine Parks.
Here.
Betsy Ronk.
Here.
Angela Trulock.
Here.
And Larry Holmes, absent.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the meeting held on January 27th. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Any comments or questions on the minutes?
I'd make a motion to accept them as read. I second.
All right. Kathy Parks makes a motion to accept the minutes. Mary Mosquera seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. All right, our second action item is the election of the Culture and Leisure Services Board officers. We need a chairperson and a vice chairperson. Molly, would you be willing to walk us through that?
So I have two examples of what was done by this board in the past. The first one is individually, and in that case, someone makes a motion to nominate. Another person nominate an individual, they name them. Another person seconds that nomination, and the nominee then either accepts or declines it. If they accept, then a roll call to vote. Another way to do it, which you're kind of going to have to do both if you want to actually look at this option, because in the past we had a chair and a vice chair that sat for many years consistently throughout their term. So in that case, the one board member made a motion to keep the current leadership, and someone else seconded that with, as long as everybody agreed to those, standing nominations, they would do the roll call to vote to approve. So you can do a combination of those, you can do just the individual ones, however you want to do it. That's just what's been done in the past.
Thank you. My recommendation would be that we just do it individually, since there is no current vice chair, and we'll just go from that. Does that sound good to everyone? Okay. So the first thing would be nominations for a chairperson. Any nominations?
I would nominate you to continue.
Okay. We need a second for the nomination. Okay. I accept the nomination. Would anyone else like to nominate someone? And then we can vote if that's necessary. No? Okay. So Kathy Parks motions Joel Fair as chairperson of the board, seconded by Angela. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. That one was easy enough. Thank you. It's a privilege to chair the board, so thank you. Second person would be, we need a vice chairperson for those times when I'm not here or am late, which is something. So who would, can we get a nomination for vice chairperson?
And Joel, you can nominate.
Excellent. Anyone interested in it?
I would accept it.
Okay, I will
I'm not hearing anything.
nominate Kathy Parks as the vice chairperson, and we need a second.
I'll second it.
Second, Mary Mosquera, thank you. Any other nominations for vice chairperson? Okay, we will take it to a vote. I nominated Kathy Parks as vice chairperson, seconded by Mary Mosquera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, that was easier. It was easy. Great job. Okay, action item number 3. We don't need anything else for that, correct? Okay. I was talking to Molly ahead of time. We are going to review and approve our meeting schedule for the remainder of this year. In the future, we're going to look at that at the November meeting. We meet starting in January every other month. So the November meeting would be the last meeting of the year for this board. So we'll approve the next year's meeting schedule at that time. Also, we will attempt to, we'll roll into that the chairperson and vice chairperson votes for the following year. So while this one is in March, in the future, we'll look to do that in November. Okay. Awesome. So the meeting schedule for the rest of the year, do we have that here? Is it just on the thing? Can we scroll? I don't know. Perfect. Great. Okay. So everyone has seen the proposed schedule for the rest of this year. Any concerns, questions, recommendations? All right. I would motion that we accept the proposed schedule for the Culture and Leisure Services Advisory Board for the rest of 2022.
And I'll second that.
Okay, Kathy Parks seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Action item number 4. Yes. Absolutely. It does not have to be on the agenda, so if you want to go ahead and close it now, we can do it now. Is there a discussion portion? Okay.
Okay,
Okay. Great. I'm trying to think when that would be a good idea. What do you guys think? I think a discussion portion is a great idea, and we want. So, and then because it might even affect some of the action items. I would say that we would put it right after approve the minutes for the meeting held on the previous meeting. That way you close that out. We've said, hey, that meeting was good. Let's start the discussion for this meeting, and we'll have an open time where anybody can bring up a discussion point. Everybody agree? Okay, I would motion to amend the agenda, adding a discussion line after we approve the minutes for the previous meeting. Would someone second that?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can you give a little clearer direction on that, because that separates the areas of the agenda? When it comes to discussion items, are those going to be things that you guys submit to us in advance so that we can formally put them on the agenda?
I don't think so, because if they were submitted in advance, then they become either an action item
Right.
or
Because
a
we can
report.
always add, like, the fee item for last meeting was a discussion item.
Okay.
So,
I think what we're talking about is open discussion that would not be on the agenda.
okay.
So just if someone had something pertaining to the meeting that they wanted to bring up in that moment, and I realize that's not a good spot for it because it is in the middle of the action items, but it might affect some of the action items, so I'm not sure where to put that.
Do you know when other, like the city council, I know sometimes it's at the beginning of the meeting before
So that's
the
public participation?
minutes?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
kind of
public
like-
participation. That can happen now.
So maybe it would be best, you're saying, to put it before action items, to put discussion items before action items?
It depends on the item. It depends on if it's something that's going to contribute to the actual actionable items, because when these are action items, you have the opportunity to discuss those before you take action.
Okay, perfect.
So
That's a good point.
if this is just something that you've kind of observed out in the neighborhood and you'd like us to do some research on it, that kind of thing you can come to us before the meeting. Or if it's something that you observe that day, perhaps, what we haven't done on this board that council does is reports for you.
You have,
How does the council do that?
Council at the end of the meeting, they have typically run over their allotted legal time.
Most of the time, almost 100% of the time, if council has an item they'd like to discuss, they submit an agenda item for it. And so that's why usually it'll be in the packet.
Well, I know that there's public participation that is prior to any of the, usually at the beginning of the meeting. Unless
Right.
unless it applies to a action item, then they wait for that public participation to
Right.
the action item. I was just kind of asking, and I just had kind of a general question, and I didn't know when to ask it.
You can
So-
ask it now.
Okay,
And
and
then
my
we can-
general question is, being new to the board, I just kind of wanted to get a better idea of how the board operates. Like, what are its responsibilities as far as, do we get, if we get items from the residents, or what, or do we get items that are kind of sent down to us from the council that they want you to look into, or what exactly is the board's role, and how does that kind of play out?
Did you receive the packet from?
Yeah, I
the
did, but I didn't think
clerks?
that answered the question
Okay.
very well. I thought it might, and I know that everybody here is new, so there probably isn't a lot of experience to say how it's worked in the past, so I figured you, being around, being that these, you would have the best advice.
I take my advice directly from the code, so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and, because your board was, actually, all of our boards are created by resolution. So what I can do is pull up the board's code, and I can provide that to you, and it breaks down what you guys decide. And you guys could decide to make a recommendation to update that, because who knows when that was updated last for this specific board. So I can provide you that information via email.
Okay.
I can provide just a little bit of historical, I mean,
Right.
it's only a year, but we are an advisory board, so it's different from council, right? They're making decisions.
It's a
We are,
non-judicial. Is that what it's called?
so for the most part, we receive input from staff who's receiving input from residents, because I've never received an email to me from a resident because I sit on this board. They do know who sits on the board, but often many of the things that we talk about are presented by staff because the residents have come to staff and they give us those questions. We also can hear those questions out in town with the residents and bring those, even give those questions to Molly and Gustavo to put on our agenda so that we can discuss those things. But we are, so like today when we look at fees, we're not making that decision. We're giving a recommendation from this advisory board to council on what our thoughts are. And so that's what the difference kind of between us and maybe some of the other boards that are making decisions.
And I guess it kind of comes from having been at some board, council meetings, and residents might have, come forward during that public participation time, and they might bring up things like, something to do with, something going on at one of the parks, or something that might fall under the purview of this board. And so would it come from the council to say, yeah, I think that should be looked into, and then because you're at the meeting, you would just pick that up and do that follow-up, or would it go through some other type of format to be?
It would just come, we'd make a note of it
Kind of
and
back
we
down
act
to
on
you.
it.
Okay,
or if we come up with other things, or hear other things out in the community, we'll bring those to you
Okay.
too. And got the verbatim duties of the Culture and Leisure Services Advisory Board according to Article 2, Section 54-28. The Culture and Leisure Services Board shall advise the city on matters pertaining to cultural events, public parks, and recreation, and shall serve in such other similar matters as the city may direct.
That's pretty broad.
I'll give you, you've been in boards and I've been in many boards. And so this city in particular, and that's very broad for a reason, is because, as Molly's saying, this board is non-judicial, non-legislative. So it's strictly advisory. And you're not appointed. The way it works in the county, for example, they have 5 districts, okay? And their recreation board, each district appoints different members. Here, you guys are all just volunteers that said, hey, I'd like to participate on that board. So it's usually people that are advocates for parks, events, recreation, arts. So we have Kathy, for example, who's an avid tennis player, and Angela, who comes to many classes and is active in the community, and Joel, who's incredibly involved with Little League and youth activities, and now Mary, who I understand also I've seen around and seen you at many events. So, just people that take an interest, say, hey, if you have any opportunity for me to give advice, I'd like to give that advice. As you say, just like you did at the city council meeting, anybody can show up and say anything they want. But at least this gives you more of a formal setting for sharing your ideas and ways of improving, addressing issues that you see from your everyday interactions with the parks.
But that helps, thank you.
We do have an invitation for public participation. I don't see it on the agenda. Is it there? I just can't. I can only
It's
see it.
above the big paragraph.
It's how we start all the meetings right after.
Right. So,
Oh, I see.
so it is in there, and it is welcome. So if someone if a citizen wanted to come and participate in this meeting and give their advice to the advisory board, they're more than welcome, and we'll invite that in a little bit. I should have read that. I didn't have it in front of me. Sorry. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Excellent.
That's great.
Thank you, Betsy. That's helpful for everyone. On that note, is there any public participation? Anyone who would like to voice anything? Excellent. Thank you. You can come up at this time. Okay, perfect. So it is an agenda item. Thank you. All right. Well, then we are on action item. Any other discussion from the board? No? Okay. Move on. Action item number 4. Review the proposed fee schedules and residency requirements for City of Cape Canaveral Community Center and existing city facilities for recommendation to City Council.
I have a little background on this one.
Do you
Sure.
have one more agenda? I don't have one, and that's part of the reason I'm all over the place. I've got it on my phone.
You don't have any of the documents?
No, I don't have
Copy of it at home.
Oh, okay.
You can use that one.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much. That's why I missed that paragraph.
So I wanted to give you a little background on this one. So this item is actually 2.5, 3 different actionable steps that you guys can take in this. And this was directed by City Council and the City Manager. We have initiated a review of all of our department fees when it pertains to facility use and rental. And one of the things that we wanted to be double sure of is what the City Council does need to, per the code, actually review. Clearly, they're not probably interested in any retail items, Gatorade, whatever concessions that, we may offer. So the code has it in 5424. The fees that City Council may establish by resolution or written agreement with a specific user of a city park, a fee schedule for the use of city parks. And that's where it comes in, the non-resident, the resident, the senior versus adult versus children. So those are specific users of park facilities and the fees that we charge in those, to use those facilities. So the scope of our current review does not include costs for any retail items that sell beverages at the Nancy Hansen, and obviously that'll probably continue over into the next facility as well. It also does not include fees to participate in leagues or to participate in events, because as we know, every day we walk outside and the gas number just keeps on changing, and it's not going down. So those are very driven by overhead costs, so those aren't part of this review. So when you're looking at what we provided to you, and these were just our drafts of ideas that we thought, you guys would help you make an informed decision. It only covers really, the usage of the facilities. So that being said, you can see from this list, this is not an overnight decision to be made. This is something that we need to take careful consideration of and do with some care and some tact. So that makes 3 different things that we need to address tonight. First is to review that procedural policy change when it comes to how are we holding people accountable for, being truthful on whether they're a resident, whether they're over 62, things like that. So we'll need you guys to at least acknowledge, or you don't have to make a recommendation on that for council, but I would like to be able to report back to council that you guys have discussed this and you've approved or provided other recommendations for staff to consider. The second item then would be to review and provide recommendations to staff to make edits and adjustments to the different ones that you've been provided. And like I said, these are just ideas. You can always throw back some totally different numbers at us if that's what you choose to do. But those edits and adjustments, think of those as starting on October 1, which is the beginning of our new fiscal year. Now, with the building slated to open, obviously before October 1, we need a temporary fee schedule in place, and that temporary fee schedule of facility use does need to be in place for when we open and carry us through October. And what a lot of the feedback and the discussion has led to is that for residents, for that first window, 5 months, 6 months roughly, that for residents it's free, and we would be asking you to provide a recommendation to City Council for a temporary, non-resident only fee schedule effective from opening day through September 30 at the City of Cape Canaveral Community Center for a drop-in court fees, all access fees where they can come in and use the upstairs too, and then a monthly fee. And that's just kind of a courtesy customer service-wise that, we want you here. We'll have a plan for you October 1 that might change, but we're going to accommodate your needs to not have to check in and, share your stuff every day. So, but we are open to all discussion. We've got a lot of different materials to digest. I'm sorry you only had a week to do that, but that's the whole point of this. And when it comes to the overarching one, the overarching recommendation for council, what you tell us to do to that particular fee schedule today will come back to you in May. And then from there, council can approve it and it'll be in place, ready to go on October 1.
I would like to propose that we look at the residency guidelines first. I think that would be the easiest to
Yeah.
probably work through as a group, and then look at the fee schedule, just to keep it simple and not run out of time.
Let me invite public participation if anybody has any input that they want to give for this line item. Is there anyone with public participation for action item number 4, reviewing the fee schedules and residency requirements? No? Okay. It is. So if you'd like to come up and speak, we're talking fee schedule and we're talking residency requirements. Yes, absolutely. Just state your name and, okay. Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? You good? All right, well, thank you. Appreciate that. Um, Molly, I'd recommend that we annotate that, and then maybe come up with some proposals for next meeting, um, on, on what that would look like. And then we can address it there after staff gives, hey, here's our recommendation of, because we could talk about it right now. We don't know what that looks like for you on the ground. You would have the best idea of how to implement something like that. I think, anytime we can take less work off the staff members there and still get the same amount of revenue, we should try to do that. It's very possible. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right.
I think that his idea, I think, as I was looking at all these options, will become very obvious to be included in there, so I think it will, um, I think it will probably come out in the discussion that we have during that time.
Yeah, and one of the things, and I can kind of add this just to have it in the back of your mind, we went back and forth quite a bit on the drop-in port fee, on whether or not that could reasonably apply to both facilities.
Okay.
And some of the thoughts that came out of that discussion is, okay, you have your ports over here and they're open certain days out of the week and the facilities are accessible. They put the nets out on the weekends and whatnot. And then you have another facility over here that's going to have a shared use space where you're going to have basketball, you're going to have pickleball, you're going to have a lot of different activities happening in the same space. Is it bigger, prettier, and more air conditioned? Yes, but you also are limited on what time slots that you can use it. Whereas opposed to over here, paying the same rate, you're getting a different set of services with different limitations. So to keep the drop-in or the monthly fees consistent between the two buildings would help keep things cleaner, but that's up to you guys.
Well, should we start with our residency first then? The facility has a lot of moving parts to it.
So that is agenda item 4.3. If you look at that, residency and age policies for the city recreation facilities. Current policy has resident 60 and over, or a resident is someone who resides in the city 60 plus days. And I would assume that those are consecutive days. I guess, does it need to state that? You know what I'm saying? Like, because if you were 1 month, or you rented
I
every.
don't think that, I think that's an honor system.
Okay.
It's
Currently.
really, yeah. What it is, and those of you that have been here a long time, you know that Cape Canaveral is a snowbird city. So when I got here 9 years ago, that was kind of in place. And I decided not to mess with it because a lot of those snowbirds that I met when I first came here. I'd been coming here for 20 years for 2 months from Canada. I haven't seen Canadians in a while, but they would rent half the town. And then people from Ohio and people, they would, yeah, Minnesota. So, the, for some reason, Cape Canaveral was a very snowbird-friendly city where people were welcome to stay for a couple months when it was freezing wherever they were at, and everybody made them feel like residents. That's the small history on where that when I came into the department, how that was in place, and I never did anything to change it.
Thank you. So that's current policy, and the proposed change to that policy then would be that rather than the honor system, it would be you'd have to have a government issued photo ID listing the 32920 address, or a government issued photo ID with a copy of a lease tax or utility bill, or annual status renewal recommended. Well, I guess that's not an or, so it's one of those first two.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
one of those first
So
two.
I have a question about the third item there.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming how it states there is the software purchase that will be used at not only the new facility, but also at Nancy Hansen will have people, or I'm not sure, I'm assuming the person working the front desk will be registering people and putting the information into the system, checking that, and then that's over for that person. And
For-
then if they, let's say, are not a daily person, I'm not sure how they would manage that on a daily situation, but especially if they were monthly or yearly or something, then the person would be given some kind of a key tag or something that they would scan when they come in. Is that how this is gonna work, or
We can even set somebody up in the system and provide them a key tag, and they can use it without having a monthly or any type of membership.
Okay.
It'll just be a means of identification, and then I personally added the part where an annual status renewal, because people move, people relocate, and if they want to continue to use the facility, we still should try to keep them accountable for that.
So, and this software will be available for use at both facilities?
Yes, we already have it.
Okay.
It's already ready to go.
Okay.
All we have to do is get the little
That's
swipies,
great.
the key
That's
cards.
great.
I was very
Which-
happy to
which will
find out
make it
this could
easy on
accommodate.
staff, then.
Yeah,
That's-
easy on
that's what I'm
staff,
looking
but
for.
easy on people that they're not carrying their tax bill with them to
If
the
someone-
gym.
If someone is day-to-day, you'll still have them pay at the time?
Mhm.
Okay. So, because I was just thinking if you kept a key fob and weren't monthly or annually, and you just you could charge them at some point. But chances are they may not come back.
It would basically just create a profile for them, and it
Okay.
would show if they have a monthly or a yearly membership, or if they don't have a membership, then it's time for them to pay.
Okay. That's good.
I guess I'll weigh in to say that I think the proposed changes that you have there of proof of age and residency is what many other municipalities do. So I think that would be in standing with what other people are used to, who might come from other municipalities. And so I think that's a great idea. Better than keeping the current 60-day plus, which I think is much, if you were going to use your software efficiently, I think that would be much harder on the staff to manage. So I think it's much easier creating that profile of that person and just saying, yes, they're a resident, or checking the box, no, they're not a resident, or however you have it configured. So I think that's a really good idea. And as far as the age of the person, whether it's 62 or whatever, I guess that,
My thought was you wouldn't have a lease, a utility bill, or a tax bill unless you were here for a while.
you could have a lease.
You could have a lease,
And
but
then,
that would still be 30, 60, 90 days.
right, which I guess, I guess my understanding of what someone who is a resident would be expecting, reading this criteria, is that in one way or another, they are contributing to the tax base of this community.
Exactly.
And so therefore, they should get a break in their fee schedule.
Invested in it.
Right. I guess if you've just got a lease for 30 days or something, I don't see that as necessarily the same situation.
So would you recommend that it say a copy of the lease greater than 60 days? Or 90 days? Or we could do-
Well, I think that if you look at a lot of the requirements of long-term leasing in the city, very few places will take what's considered a long-term lease at anything less than 3 months. So I guess the only question I would have is that a difficulty for the staff to manage when they're going through, enrolling somebody, to have to be looking at, okay, now how long are you staying? Where does that say that on the lease? And you want to try to streamline this so that staff isn't come from the IT, and I built all of this kind of stuff, so I understand how it is for users when they go to have to interact with the software, and you want to make it as efficient as possible for them, and something that they don't have to compute up. So, but it would be nice for the people who come back year after year, if they stay for 6 months or 4 months or whatever, that they're in the system, and then they could just say, yep, I'm here again for 4 months, see, here's my lease for 4 months or 3 months or something. I guess my thought is, 3 months, anything less than 3 months, I don't see as necessarily. Some people would say probably 6 months. I don't know. People think about time limit on that.
Right now, it just says lease, so
Yeah.
it could be a month. So if we would recommend nothing less than a 3-month lease, then that would need to be, a formal recommendation to the proposed change. I don't know that it's necessary, but in order to meet what you're talking about, Betsy, and being a contributor within the city, it might be worth saying a copy of the lease greater than 90 days. But that is another layer of responsibility on the person who's checking them in to say, oh, now I have to
Look at the
make
time.
sure, if I mean, it's just one more thing to look at. I'm looking at the name, I'm looking at the address, I look at the date, but it is another layer of benefit.
Otherwise, I mean, I get the lease part being that you might have somebody who is renting here permanently, but hasn't changed their ID. And totally, they should be able to take advantage of that. So you could just say, a lease of over a year, whatever, I don't know. I think what I'm probably trying to mitigate is blowback from residents, that the break given to residents in fee schedule versus a non-resident is appropriate. And so if you're going to publish these proof of residency requirements, then I think you want to make sure they're as tight as they can be, so you don't end up with a lot of complaints. Because you don't want complaints.
So would you like to make a motion to either extend it to a 90-day lease?
Well, let's ask, because being that I don't know your software, would that be a hard thing for the person using the software to manage?
Yeah, we're just checking
it
the
just
box.
checks
for
the
That's what I
box.
kind of figured. You're probably just checking a box. They looked at.
But we also, within our software system, we have attachments. so we could attach.
Is there a, when they check the box, does it say when it expires?
No.
Can,
So, you mean, you could say, yeah, I'm here for 3 months, but, I mean, it doesn't matter. That's what I want to prevent. For then
but
people
see,
thinking,
but they've
"Oh, I gotta
already
come
made
use
a,
my
they've
lease."
already made an investment in the city for 3 months.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what 3
Mm-hmm.
months those are.
Mhm.
They've still made that investment.
Where this gets a little tricky is on the daily drop-in, somebody comes in and, they claim to be a resident, yet they don't have a lease on them to just play pickleball. Now, what happens? They're gonna either get turned away or they're gonna have to pay the non-resident fee until they can produce.
Today, and then tomorrow, bring it with you.
There you go.
Well, I think that's another reason why it's good to publish it,
It's, yeah.
on your website or whatever. People are gonna be looking for what's the fee schedule, what do you have available, all that kind of stuff. So if it's well documented, I mean, I'm kind of thinking, they do the same thing up at that, space thing up at the port, that you can go, they do the same thing there, but they have it right there on their website, so I better take with me whatever, so I can get the resident break.
And the website would be fully updated once,
Right.
when Casera and Gustavo are working on that particular page to turn it from a project page into a functional, this is our building page, and all of the fees and all of the rules and everything will be clearly put up on there. The unfortunate thing is they might not scroll down far enough to read it, but at least we can provide the information whether they digest it and accept it or not.
Absolutely. I would make a recommendation to accept the proposed changes as written. I think if you have a lease, that's a step, like, that's clear that you are contributing to the city. I think it would add extra to everyone involved to have to figure out 90 days. Are they within the 90 days that their lease says? Are they currently a resident? And so I would recommend that we accept those proposed changes. But if anyone feels differently, I mean, Betsy, you've talked a couple
No,
things.
I mean, I kind of agree, and I
Okay.
don't know how many rentals that are short-term, what kind of paperwork they
Right.
actually, expect or
Right.
have people sign. And it's not like you can rent a Airbnb for a month or something, but you're not gonna get a lease. So maybe, people don't go to that extent unless they're there more permanently.
I think so. I think the lease, tax, utility bill. The one thing that I would possibly say is that you said listing a 32930 on the ID. Do you want to go ahead and say that on the lease, tax, or utility bill also?
Yeah.
So I would make that recommendation to accept them, the proposed changes as written, to accept the proposed changes with an addendum to the second government-issued photo ID plus a copy of lease tax utility bill listing a 32920 address, just like it's listed for the ID. That's,
Perfect.
recommend
That's
that motion. I guess we're not doing motions, right? We're
Make a
just-
motion.
Okay. Yeah,
Make a motion, I'll make
all
it
right.
done.
that's my motion. Would someone second that?
I'll second that.
Mary seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What
All
about the age?
And have we said it's gonna be 90 days?
No.
minimum,
No,
Or we're gonna
We
leave it
said
at
if you have a
60?
lease or a tax or a utility bill, you've gone to some extent to get it. It's not a receipt for your Airbnb, it is a lease.
Yeah, it's
So,
not, no, doesn't say Radisson on it.
that's right. So, all right, great. So the age requirement, currently it's at senior 62 plus. I think that's pretty standard and would recommend to continue with that. Any conversation, discussion there? No? I'll motion that we accept the, current policy of a senior being 62 and over.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we got one of the three done. Let's go ahead and move to, we have three draft proposals for a fee schedule for both the community center that is almost done and the recreational facility rentals. All three are for both, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And these are the ones that will be taking effect October 1. So this will be, at least at the community center, this will be the first time that people will be residents will be paying to use the facility.
Okay.
Because until October 1, residents can use the facility for free with the
I-
proof that you just established.
Could, I have a couple of questions just to verify your terminology
Okay.
and also some logistics. As far as we have listed here, court fees to apply to both community center and Nancy Hansen Rec Complex. I'm questioning how well staff would manage that at the new community center after having seen exactly the layout. Because you don't have to go past that check-in desk again if you want to go upstairs and use the facilities. So are you expecting people to be on the honor system to go back to the desk and say, oh, I changed my mind and now I do really want to go upstairs?
Well, we actually discussed today the placement of staff seating, so we'll actually have eyes on both doors
Both
So-
doors.
coming into the facility
Mhm.
and where the gym goes to the upstairs.
Well, they're sitting in that in that desk.
One person's facing the front door.
Right.
Where the entrance is. So as soon as you walk in the front door, your eyes are met by a person that's going to check your ID or check your card and get you registered in the system so you can go wherever. The second person is stationed at the end of that line with eyes on the stairs, the entrance to the gymnasium area, and the elevator.
So
But then that person would have to be the policeman there to say, hey, wait a second, you can't go up there. And what if I said when I came in, well, I want to have an all-access day pass? Then that second person wouldn't really know what I paid because I paid the first person. So
The computers are connected and the systems are
is
connected,
it just
so they could
easier
just
to
look it up.
just say, let's have a court fee for Nancy Hansen over here, and let's have an all-access day pass over there? Period.
your concern is that someone would say, I'm paying the drop, they would come and pay the drop-in fee and then assume an all-access pass,
Well,
or even.
they would just go.
Okay.
I mean, in the craziness of people coming and going and stuff, I don't want staffing to have to police that. I think that's kind of a lot to ask, because if you have 15 people leaving or 30 people leaving, because now you're saying pickleball is over and we're gonna set it up, take the nets down and set it up for basketball or something. And all of a sudden, all these people are walking out that one place through that one area, and some of them go upstairs and some don't, and they're not gonna look. That's unreasonable to expect somebody to manage that, is you know what I'm saying? So, I think if you were to make the all-access day pass, resident, non-resident, senior, whatever, appropriate, instead of on all of these, you just have the all-access day pass the same for everybody, and just make that known. It's, you get everything when you come. This is what you get.
I see what you're saying. I think that on all of them, the non-resident adult is the same as the drop-in court fee. Correct? Yes. Nope. On the last one, it's $7 and $8. And then the non-resident senior is $1 change on the first on A and B, and then $2 on the last one. I'll be honest. I think that if your honor is only worth $1 to you for I don't think that anybody should have to regulate that or even be concerned about that. But but I also know that from a previous conversation when you presented to us, you've seen a lot of that.
And I guess I agree with what you said from the non-resident part perspective, but if you look at it, what the cost difference is from the resident perspective, which I think is somewhat high to begin with, if you're just saying the two court fees should be the same, on all of these schedules, therein lies the difference. But I'm really just trying to say, is there a better way to streamline this for staff?
So the hope is that for staff, I think, is that if you're a resident, you're going to get one of these monthly or annual passes to save yourself money. If you're going to be doing it this much, right?
Exactly.
That you would get one of those passes. So they would enable you. The monthly pass is an all access pass, correct? It's an all access pass for everything, including a drop in.
Yep,
For
you
that
can go
day.
play pickleball and then go upstairs and stretch and walk the track.
Yeah. So really, I mean, that's where your revenue is going to come, is from both non-resident and residents purchasing monthly and annual fees that you won't have to police because it's already been purchased. And we checked to see whether you're a resident at the time, and we're not worried about. So really, you're just talking about the single day drop-ins.
And that's why I'm saying maybe it's easier, instead of trying to figure out who's what, where, who paid what, are you this kind of a person, or are you that kind of a person, whatever, just make it easier and just have, at that facility, all access day passes monthly or yearly, and forget the court drop-in thing. That's all that's kind of what I'm proposing. Readjust your all-access day pass rate and, to be more in line with giving residents a break in pricing. And then I think it would be, I mean, if, regardless of what you're doing, if you're registered in the system and you're coming, and if they're knowing, what you are, what you pay, I mean, some people might be like, I'm just gonna pay the daily because I only play once a week, or I only wanna come once a week, or I only come when it's raining and I wanna go walk inside. So we don't know until you get more of an idea what's going on in the building.
I did want to say, I think that because this is for October, we're going to have a lot more information come September, having seen how many non-residents, how many residents, how many seniors, how many adults, how many kids have been using the facility. We're going to know a lot more about the revenue and how much it brings in. We're going to know more about the expenses. So we're guessing right now. If there is already a temporary system set up, a temporary fee schedule set up to go through October, I think we might be premature in coming up with one of these decisions now. And that's actually one of the things that I was thinking today was, you know what, we should come up with but it sounds like you already have the temporary fee schedule.
Well, you guys have to approve that.
Okay.
And one of the ideas, and I'm like brainstorming with you as you're talking, one of the things that we can do, and I'm just grabbing, I don't even know which option this is, we could scratch out court fees, move that header to all access day pass over a section, and get rid of the drop-in court fees period, and just have an all access day pass that matches those, very distinguishable between
At both
resident
facilities?
and at both
So
facilities.
currently for pickleball and tennis over here,
Hourly.
it's hourly. Okay, so that is a change.
That's something that you guys would have to discuss, because that's, pickleball, and anybody that's played pickleball can attest to it. It's difficult, because sometimes you go in, you pay for your hour, you don't play until an hour later, and who's watching the clock? So that's something that it would help staff to streamline, but
I agree with that.
We would-
Wholeheartedly, because, it says right there on the sign, you should pay before you play.
And people ought to be responsible and do that, so
And they-
nobody's
and-
running back and forth from the office.
I think people are getting better at it, put it that way.
Well,
but
I know
you're
when
not-
we play tennis, we pay on the other.
But you don't.
Every time.
You don't, when you leave, you don't true it up to say, oh, I was really here for 3 hours, now I gotta go pay some more money. You paid the initial fee, $1 or $2, whatever, and then you just left. Doesn't matter how long you were there. And that's, because I see that all the time. So I think it's easier, at least when there's a lot of people. Now, maybe it's different for tennis. Do they pay by the hour? They know they're gonna be here for X amount of time?
We
and
usually
they-
pay the $2.
Yeah, so they're,
when
you
we
could
go
pay
in
for,
there.
play for 2 hours, and they're not gonna go true it up when you leave.
you'll need to come up and speak into the microphone
on
for
up.
the ADA.
That's true.
Yeah. I don't think we know enough to change anything right now. Exactly.
Right. Can I ask, as a resident, what are your thoughts on an all-day pass for pickleball? Okay, got it. Okay. Okay, great. Yeah. Okay. Right. Excellent, thank you.
I'll tell you, Cocoa Beach charges $3 for their open pickleball inside their gym. They don't have outdoor pickleball,
For
but they're
the day, or?
well,
For the session.
for the session.
Okay.
It's $3, and there's no resident, non-resident. County facilities, the same thing. They just have a flat fee for the session.
Where it's private, they charge a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Thank you.
And anecdotally, what Roger's saying is true. We've had non-residents leave for the existing low fee schedule. And they're like, oh, I'll drive to Cocoa. And I'm like, okay, well, you're going to spend a lot more money by the time you get there in gas, but okay.
I think that would be a definite improvement for staff and for revenue to just have a Nancy Hansen only drop-in court fee, but increase it from what it is today, whether you double it or, I don't see that even doubling it from what it is today to, is unreasonable, because all you're going from is $2 or $1 or,
$1
it's-
for,
Resident seniors is $2 right now, but you gotta keep in mind how many senior residents there are too, that are on limited incomes. And by the time they pay their rent, utilities and
Right.
everything else, not all of us live in mansions.
well, a resident
You know.
senior is only paying $1. And a non-resident senior is paying $2. Now you have the prime versus non-prime
I
hours.
don't know
and-
what she's looking at.
I think that's the original one that's actually on the wall in there now.
Yeah,
What's,
it's-
what's,
Well, I'm looking at the option A.
No, I was looking at the existing fee schedule. If you're gonna say, well, what should it you know, what is it today if we're only talking Nancy Hansen? And what should it be moving forward? I don't know if you would want to split it between prime and non-prime, or you just want to go with double the non-prime and just leave it at that. It's still an increase of $1 over what the prime hours are.
I was personally
don't know
trying to
what
get
she's
away
looking
from the prime.
Yeah, that's
Because
what I'm
it's
saying,
really
just one fee and be
confusing.
done with it.
It's confusing for staff and staff gets beat up for it, because they're the messenger. And once upon a time, firing up those lights cost a fortune. And Gustavo, what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, replaced them all with LEDs. So the price, I mean, it still costs money to run LEDs, but not like the stadium lighting that it used to be out there. So once upon a time, I could understand why they charged more for the evening. And from the stories that I was told from the previous secretary there, Fran, that was there for 31 years, that place packed out at night. So it was almost not just, you know, a increase in price because of the increased energy use, but it was also a little bit to kind of curb demand a little bit. Obviously, that's changed, and our leagues are dominant in the evenings now. So a lot of things. It's time to relook at a lot of things.
For clarity, what is the current proposed May through October fee schedule?
It's
What,
there isn't one.
whatever,
So it's
whatever.
whatever we decide.
Mhm.
And then we're also
And
looking
this is
at,
only for the community center.
okay,
And that no other fee changes will take place until October 1 for the new fiscal year.
okay.
So you
Got it,
keep
thank
the
you.
same drop-in fees
Keep
for
the same drop in.
tennis and
For
Nancy
now.
Yeah,
Hansen.
for now.
But then
Until
we're kind
October,
of
and then we
saying
can-
that in October, you could break, as you institute the new community center fees, you could break out the Nancy Hansen to its own fee schedule. And you
Right.
could then increase it.
And that'll also give people that go there regularly notice that the change is coming.
And I think that you will find the usage in the summer versus the winter will be vastly different. So I don't think that this summer will give you a good idea on the money that you're going to make.
No.
Right. For either one, because
For either one, no.
Nancy Hansen's gonna be less, and the community center's gonna be more.
More, or
But
there's just gonna be
You
people.
should have a general idea of,
I mean, even at our,
resident, and non-resident, I was thinking that you had a general idea
Sorry.
of that, but really you're gonna have,
Yeah.
you don't even get that. But we'll know staffing better, we'll know operational, like day-to-day operational maintenance costs better. We'll have a better idea of, expenses and revenue, well, maybe not revenue because it's gonna be free.
right.
But we'll have a better idea of expenses so we can have the revenue meet the expenses.
Well, we'll be able to count the bodies coming in and
Absolutely.
apply a price to that, which could help.
Absolutely,
know,
we'll be
do
able to
that.
know, hey, you don't have to pay, but we do need your information, because we need to know who's here and who's using.
And you'll have, as I said earlier, we'll bring this back to you guys in May, but we also have July. And we can get stuff done in July and still have it done before that September meeting, because there's not much time after the September meeting
Right.
to fire that up. So, and you guys can always call a special meeting, but,
And there wouldn't be a council meeting after the September meeting before
Correct.
October 1.
so.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we need to have
basically,
that
if
by
we're gonna
July.
do this according to schedule without adding a special meeting, we'll need to have a solid recommendation to council at the end of the July 28th meeting. So we've got another meeting in between to do that.
All right, so what we need to do today is we need to come up with a May to October fee schedule, with a recommendation that we don't have a drop-in court fee during that time. It would only be the all-access day pass, the monthly fee, the yearly fee. And then you have 3 different options there, A, B, and C. Or you can recommend some modification to them. But maybe we take,
And this is only for non-residents.
Correct, because all residents
Are free.
are free to, until October, okay.
I have one other just thing to throw out there, and I don't know if this was considered or not in your yearly fee, or maybe even in your monthly fee. Did that include access of both facilities? Should it?
Well, revenue-wise, it would, you know,
Because if somebody pays a yearly fee, but yet in the winter they'd like to play pickleball outside, and in the summer they want to play inside, but I've paid for the year, why should I have to repay on a daily basis for that versus the, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to think of staffing. Would you be better off to use it as a marketing thing to say the yearly fee includes both facilities? And therefore, people would be like, oh, well, for that, definitely, I don't mind if I'm a resident senior and I'm paying $143 a year and I get to use both facilities, that's great. Or if you wanted to say instead of 143, it's 160 or something, because you get both facilities. I see that as a good marketing tool.
But that would be for October, because
Right,
Nancy
right.
Hanson is staying the same until
Right,
now.
or
and
even
then-
for a I doubt that non-residents are gonna get a yearly fee, but for somebody that lives in Cocoa and really, I think that people will be surprised at how many people who even live in Cocoa Beach, once they see your facility, will say, well, this is a lot cheaper than what I'm paying to go to Cocoa Beach Gym. And, even if we go with option C, they're still gonna see it's a lot cheaper and it's a lot nicer. And,
well, that depends, right? Because they're night and day facilities. So when we talk about, for example, Cocoa Beach Health and Fitness, that place has showers, a spin room that if you're a member, you can take spin classes. If you take a yoga class, you have to, it's included. They have 30 treadmills. They have 10 free weight benches. So just a quick example of how much one day could cost you at our facility, okay? Let's just say you're a resident senior and you want to do Zumba and yoga on the same day, okay? So resident senior, let's just say, what, for the all-day access pass, let's just say is $5, right? But then you want to do Zumba, that's another 5. And if you want to do yoga on the same day, that could be 15. So in one day is $20 to do all three. Cocoa Beach Health and Fitness is 20, 30 a month. And it includes all that with
True.
showers and
true.
everything.
But I guess where I'm coming from is more of someone who may be like, I get the opportunity to play pickleball inside or outside. Plus, I could go walk if the weather is bad. And I can play basketball, I can play volleyball, and I can go lift weights and go on the treadmill. And there's many options that even down there they don't have. They don't have a walking track, they don't have pickleball, basketball, tennis, whatever it is that is, your sport of choice. So you have a different option, but I'm just saying, I'm surprised at how many people walk in and pay $10 at Cocoa Beach Health Club and, and walk on the treadmill or lift weights for an hour and then walk out the door. And they pay $10 every time they walk in the door because they're visiting. I mean, I'm shocked.
When I used to travel for a living, that's exactly what I would have to do.
And so that's why I think that the non-residents will easily pay, a non-resident adult will easily pay $8 for all access in a day.
Yeah, here's what I'll caution you though. Each facility comes with its own set of operating costs. So by making it easier on non-residents to pay less at the Nancy Hanson, you're actually affecting the overall revenue of the department. So just food for thought. on just letting, for an extra $20, people play unlimited at this other facility.
Well, but you're not gonna have everybody do that. I mean, you'd still
Yeah.
obviously have the Nancy Hansen fees for those who are only interested in tennis, or only interested in racquetball.
But they're not at the new facility.
Right, right. I'm only saying, if you are a yearly or monthly payer, the benefit of saying you can also go use the other facility, which really is going to fall more to residents than to non-residents. I think isn't, you could even bump up your yearly fee for that benefit of not having to pay on the day or decide. when
Like a
you're gonna-
premium membership that includes both.
Well, you could do that too. You could do that too.
Well, that is a discussion for a later meeting, because that's in October. But it does have a baseline that we're establishing with whatever we choose for the interim tonight. I do think that, I'm just trying to keep us moving. I think that the two things to keep in mind: you will have people that purchase a yearly pass. You'll have non-residents that purchase a yearly pass in these next 4 or 5 trial month period, that are going to get in on a good rate probably, because
Well,
You're not gonna offer that.
we're not offering a yearly,
you're not offering a yearly.
not until October 1, because there's not a full year until October 1.
Okay,
So-
so it's only monthly
Yeah,
or
only-
all day.
Yep.
Okay,
Well,
that's
and I
great.
think that even the monthly all access, all I'm saying is, I think you need a definition,
Of what all access means.
what that means.
Or
so-
or are you saying monthly, like the day that you buy it to the
Well, that's up to their
date of the next
software.
month?
That's up
Or
to
are you
their
saying
software.
that
That
if you buy it-
the software will,
Okay.
Manage that.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying, if somebody's gonna purchase a monthly, even in the interim, obviously they're a non-resident, does that mean that they get both facilities or not? And establishing a definition moving forward, I think will help to, help the discussion eventually to say, okay, this is what this includes, this is what it does not include. That's where I'm just trying to make it easier for us moving forward to have the definitions.
The beauty of what you're saying is we're coming into our slow snowbird season. So if you were to add that premium membership now to non-residents and include this facility, that's really,
I like the premium option.
For the interim?
Or don't offer it for the
Or-
interim.
Or don't offer it for the interim.
And just
I don't,
go-
I don't think we should change too much about our budgety stuff.
Or maybe only offer it, like you kind of said, make the yearly kind of a premium thing. You could even bump up the pricing a little bit and then say, and with a yearly, you get both facilities.
because it's, a lot of gyms, and I've worked at a lot of gyms, you do have pre-sales, right? So if the intent is to get those non-residents, kind of get that money in there, well, there's your incentive right now if you pay for the year. But again, they're non-residents, so I don't know how that'll work as
Well,
far as the
except
market
if you're
for the
like,
year,
let's
but-
say, just over the edge in Cocoa Beach.
Right,
And you always come here anyway
Oh,
to
yeah.
play pickleball,
yeah,
or you don't go to the gym, or you just, go use the one in your condo, which is really
Right.
bad, or something
Yes.
like that.
100%. And look, anecdotally, here's what I'll tell you. Every time a worker in there looks at that place, that work in Cocoa Beach and live in Cocoa Beach, are like, oh, I want to come here. How much is this place? So every time somebody lays eyes on that thing, they want to be in there, so.
Well,
Well, I think that after looking at all the options that you've come up with and seeing that we, a temporary fee schedule, which is what we really have to come up with, I would propose looking at considering an all-access day pass for a senior, non-resident senior to be more in line with like $6 a day, and a adult to be $8 a day. But a child, I think, should not have to be that high. I think even a non-resident child, because I don't know what all they would, I don't see them charging them more than, let's say, $3 or something like that.
So option C has a drop-in court fee that you could just shift over to the all-access day pass fee of $6 for non-resident seniors, $7 for non-resident adults, and $3 for non-resident child.
Yeah.
That would be my recommendation.
I agree.
We take that as our all-day, all-access day pass fee. You have a monthly fee that you can keep the same, the $33 for the non-resident senior. It's still less, coming out a little more than $1 a day for both adults and seniors, and then not too much for a non-resident child either. So I would recommend shift that drop-in court fee to the all-access day pass fee. It's going to be free for resident, senior, adult, and child, and keep the monthly fees that are in option C.
I would propose increasing the monthly fee, because if you're looking at $33, that's only 5 times in a month that you're pretty much coming.
But this is just interim until
Well,
October. And we've got a lot of time to discuss
Yeah,
it between
but
now and then.
even
That's why I
s-
would say leave it with the option A, which is pretty much the way it is.
I think
And-
we need
and
to
give us
wait
time to discuss it more before we.
and collect the data of what we see actually happens before we start changing prices. Let's start with
Start
what we
talking
have.
to people we're playing with about they're going up and, get them.
Well, we're not talking about the Nancy Hansen changing.
No changes to
No
Nancy Hansen
no
right
changing
now.
to there. We're only talking about the, right? Is that
Correct.
correct, Mom?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We're only
for the
changing
int-
about the new price.
Yeah.
So
So that would be, non-resident senior day pass would be $6, non-resident senior monthly fee 33. Non-resident adult $7, non-resident adult monthly would be 39.
right, and 3 and 13.
When is it opening? Proposed?
April, end of April. So,
Ideally, it was the end of April, but we don't, what we didn't want to do, and this is very difficult for people to understand. It's going to be very hard from us completing a punch list on the building to all of a sudden, doors open, let's go. You need at least 3 to 4 weeks of transition in getting everything with staff, etc. I know everybody wants to just get in there, but my opinion is you need a little transition to make sure staff is ready, to make sure all your paper towel dispensers are installed at the right place, to make sure, because it's the contractor still has it, and then we have a splash pad that's being built. So you don't want to open a facility when you have an active construction zone still.
So are you doing a soft opening?
Well, that's the thing. That's no, because we're still about a month away, I think, from having control of the building, and we're about 2 months away from the splash pad. That timing seems to work just fine to actually have a project grand opening where then everybody's ready at the facility, the splash pad is done, and we can have a really nice fun party out there instead of, yeah, we have this soft opening for this building, but this is still under construction, muddy, and and it's all fenced off, so you can only come in the area in this way, and so
And that timeline you just gave, it's a June 1
Uh,
opening. Because you said,
late May, mid-May, yeah, because it's that splash pad. And here's the beauty of the splash pad. Whether it's working or not, that's not that big a deal because we can address whatever permitting issues for us to be able to turn the button for water to come out. But for the construction to be done,
Right.
that's the main thing. Yeah.
So basically, you're only really speaking about 4 months to have a temporary fee schedule for it anyway then.
Yeah, but I'm hoping by mid-May to late May, this thing is just all done and but it would be ideal to have it in 3 weeks in April, but I just don't see how. You've walked in there, Molly. We're not 3 weeks away from staff being
trying.
in there ready, and
I'm still taking pictures and seeing stuff, and
Yeah.
I propose for the fee schedule, option C, like we talked about, with the drop-in court fee being the all-access day pass fee, and then the monthly fees as is for non-resident, senior, adult, and child. It is high for, non-residents, and I think that it'll be okay, because people are gonna wanna be inside in the summer. So, go ahead and do that, and that'll give us some good data on what we're doing.
Here's the thing, and again, I used to travel for a living 16 years ago. I've paid as much as $15 for a YMCA 15, 16 years ago. So I can't imagine how much it is today.
Right.
You know, and there's no Planet Fitness here to compete with you for $10 a month. So
Okay.
And I think for the future, if, you know, as everyone goes back and mulls this over a lot more, I don't think it would be unreasonable to continue, I mean, let's say to continue to focus on option C with the same pricing that, you know, we just spoke of as temporary. If it, you know, with maybe just adding in looking at adding in the senior or the resident rate, maybe for seniors of $2 and the adults for $3. And the only reason I'm proposing that they be that low is because of I think we really need to give a substantially looking decrease to those whose taxpayer money is being used in this community.
So you suggested, and I'm just making notes, resident senior, knock that down to 2. Resident adult, what did you propose?
I would say 3.
3?
Or 4, that which is kind of,
2 to 4, yeah. It's half off for senior then,
yeah,
using
yeah.
that formula. Okay. So we'll need a motion
Now,
to,
maybe you want to, you know, look at increasing the monthly fee or the yearly fee, or, you know, if you want to say the yearly fee includes both facilities, or however, you know, maybe some of those thoughts, then increasing the monthly or yearly fee to be more so that you're looking at, you know, a usage of, you know,
Sorry,
twice a
I've
week
gotta
or
go
something like that.
soon. So we gotta do the temporary.
Okay,
And
so I think we
so,
have that.
Well, I made the motion. Does anyone second the motion?
I second the motion.
Second motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
So you
Thank
have
you.
that, Molly?
we have that, and that will, you will see that on the agenda for the next council meeting as your recommendation for the interim temporary made September 30th, using option C, the non-resident senior rates. All access passes will be actually reflective of what's currently under the heading of drop-in. And I made notes for the other ones to add to the meeting in May. So,
Thanks. The last thing for this agenda item is on agenda item 5, you have proposed hours of operation for the community center. They're all here. Again, like, so much of this is dependent on staffing, and where we're at in a month, 2 months, to be able to support this. So, it's an interim. Would you say it's an interim, just like the fee schedule, or would you establish this as going forward? Because I think what you could do is you could do the interim, find out how much it's being used, find out, do people want it open longer, do we need to staff more, and so you can just, same thing, hey, we have an interim fee schedule and we have an interim hours right now. This is where we're at. And then as we figure out how much the facility is being used, who it's being used by, where we're at with staffing, who we need to hire, we can come up with better, a more informed decision on what our hours are going to be.
I think that probably though you have to include some type of Saturday hours to get an idea how popular a Saturday
Mhm.
would be.
Right.
Especially, I would think, could become very popular throughout the year with parents and kids,
Mhm. And
more
the-
so
And the
than.
Euro
Especially in the
leagues.
summer.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So I don't think that is a good option even temporarily.
Great. What's your recommendation for, so let's establish, I would recommend that I would motion that whatever we recommend is an interim, through September, and then we'll readdress, same thing with the fee schedule. Would anyone second that interim idea?
I second it.
All in favor? Okay. All right, so now we're talking interim, and then this will give us more data on what to do come October timeframe with hours of operation. And really, does this need to go back to our board? Like, we're just giving a recommendation. Wouldn't it be determined by you guys as staff what your hours are? We can't tell you.
I think chapter 54, I think city manager establishes
Okay,
operating hours.
got it.
But he appreciates, obviously,
Absolutely.
the input of residents, especially people that will be using the facility and have interest in the facilities as well.
But it's
So-
good for us to know what we're,
Yes.
we can recommend,
Right.
but it
Yeah, this isn't
ultimately-
what they consider an administrative, so it's day-to-day. This part doesn't have to go to council like the fees do. The fees are spelled out in the city code, that council appoints fees for things, sewage,
Excellent.
stuff like that.
Thank you.
So was that option B or C?
We haven't said yet.
Oh,
We're just-
okay. We're just, we made the motion to establish
I think
interim.
option
So
B
are you
would,
saying then that over time it could be adjusted based on usage or
Absolutely.
people asking for more time or something like that,
Mm.
without it being a big deal?
Yes.
Or,
Without
know,
it coming back to
Yeah,
us.
it won't take an act of Congress to meet the needs of the community for a facility that, it's for them, so.
and I guess especially after going through the interim period, you'll see from the data whether there's that need for expanding Saturday hours or if you have the workers for it.
Right. And then the other advantage, and despite the many delays, I think we were originally supposed to open in January, opening at this slower time of the year and having the 1 year mark of being open still prior to the start of the next fiscal year will give you guys an opportunity to really absorb an entire year, despite whatever chaos happens next year. I can't wait. It'll give you a full year scope before the next fiscal year begins to kind of assess different things as well. So it's not the timing we planned on, but it's actually not a terrible time to do kind of a slow roll into our daily functions.
I guess then I would make motion to say, to propose option B as far as Saturday timing goes for the temporary. And see how it goes. If you have staffing for Saturday there, at least that's a little bit lesser of a window to have to staff.
Thank you. Betsy recommends option B. Do you have a second? Any further discussion? Keep forgetting that part. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you. All right, that is the completion of the action items. We're moving on to staff reports. Molly.
So the first thing, Kathy's been around long enough to know, and you've kind of been working with the two departments. When I first started, Gustavo and I were always part of the same department. It was called Culture and Leisure Services, hence the name of the board. The board was once called just the Leisure Board, and prior to that, it was called the Recreation Board. City manager has effectively brought the band back together. So, to take advantage of my strengths and Gustavo's strengths and his depth of experience in parks and projects management, they're combining our departments again. It'll be officially considered once they put together the new budget, but it puts him in a position as the projects and parks administrator, and puts me in charge of the leisure services department. And that'll get all tidied up when we get into the new fiscal year, but they thought that going into both the Cape Center project and all of the other new projects that are coming online, that this would be a better fit for managing everything kind of a little bit more evenly. So if you weren't aware of that, I wanted to bring that to your attention. The city manager asked me to share the memo with you. Nothing really changes apart from who you call and who gets in trouble the most.
Any questions from Molly about that?
About it.
Okay.
Oh, and if you haven't taken the Arts and Engagement Survey, today's the last day. You have till midnight. Please do. It's on our website. There's QR codes. You can even stand out in front of our sign out front and hit your camera button in front of the sign, and it will work. Don't do it while you're driving. But it's 7 questions, and it's helping us identify the needs in the community, the interests in the community, and how people want to see that the Cape Center structured and programmed. So, but that's all I have.
Getting us all out of here. So I give you just quick glimpse of the community center. Some of you have gone in it. It's mostly built, but we're still working on a lot of punch list items. The splash pad is a little behind. We're working on permitting. We're working on addressing Department of Health, some concerns they had. The engineers are working on it. They resubmitted for the permit, and I'm working on a couple other things that need to get done as far as permitting. So hopefully within a month and a half to 2 months, we have a splash pad. Veterans Memorial Park, I don't know if you guys remember, but that's going to get redeveloped at some point. We're thinking of, we've been able to figure out how to better encapsulate stormwater into that park. So we're reaching out to the engineer on record to see what it would take to make those changes before we move forward with redevelopment and construction. It would be a really neat thing, specifically because there's this area off of the Center Street called the Center Street Basin. That area floods. This would help take some of that water, so those folks won't be flooding. So that's one of the small things city is doing overall to include parks in the overall makeup of the city and stormwater. And lastly, the Civic Hub, which that's in its infancy right now. And what's happening with that is the community development director is going to put out a public bid to demolish that building. Once that's done, the building will come down. Come next fiscal year, the reins come loose, and us being able to put out a survey to see what people want out of the Civic Hub. From that, then will come a really in-depth master planning process to include, accessibility, to just make it a really masterpiece for the city to go along this whole civic plaza. So those are the main projects I'm working on right now.
Thank you.
Has there been anything on the grant for Patriots Park?
Can you speak into
Oh,
that?
I'm sorry. For Patriots Park, there was a
Not
grant?
yet. Yeah, I
Not yet.
think usually by July we hear when their budget comes out. It's when the legislature allocates all their budget. So that's when we hear, and hopefully we make it. We ask for pennies. So
Thank you, Gustavo. Any other questions for Molly? You're done? Okay. Any other questions for Molly or Gustavo? Anything else for the board? Oh, all right. I would motion for us to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.